So I'm not going to be touching on the balance changes in this video. This video is strictly going to be a video for support Ash. Now, this is... Each of the 3 supports have 3 general styles of play that you're going to build around, where for how your healing works. So Pablo, for example, is going to be based around amulets. Cheryl is kind of the cola girl. She's based around Shemp pretty much exclusively. And Ash is the combat medic. He's going to be healing in combat the most. So let's look at what his passives do first. We're not going to talk about his ability, just his passives. The first passive and the primary way that you're going to be doing your healing outside of Shemp's is alternative healing. Alternative healing makes it so that every successful melee attack, heavy melee, important distinction, will restore 25 health for you and nearby teammates. It has the same healing radius that your Shemp has. Now that's important to know because it's 5 meters. Whereas if you compare this to other heavy melee abilities such as Scotty's is remarkably smaller. I was going to say shorter and smaller at the same time, and it came out as smaller. Apologies on that. I can't speak English right now. This is not a lot of healing. However, there is a gimmick. I'm going to call it a gimmick. I don't know if it's a bug. I don't know if it's a feature. If you heavy melee a target that is in a finisher animation, it will proc your healing. This is a very effective strategy for support Ash to generate more healing. Because if you get interrupted while you're swinging, you don't get the heal. It's only if contact is made. But you will still get the healing off of a target in a finisher. So if you have a nearby teammate that's spam finisher chaining, you can heal them up by just swinging with them. A lot of people say that you want to focus building around faster attack speed melee objects. I don't recommend that. People say, oh, you want a hunting knife with him. It's nice, but most of your speed would come from light attacks. Most heavy attacks are relatively slow, even on faster weapons. For my opinion, he is actually the single best character for unarmed combat in the game, because unarmed heavy attack is actually pretty good. It deals a decent amount of balance bar damage, so you can kind of 2-punch with your heavy and then go into a finisher. It is a very effective strategy at the beginning of the game. I had one game as Ash where I kept a demon player busy for literally 10 minutes. We had all 3 map pieces and part of the dagger captured by the time he finally left me. At the time, I had 3 colas and an amulet that I spawned with. I went through the amulet and 1 cola. And the rest of it was just unarmed. Like, he would not leave me alone to get a weapon. I had a boomstick with 2 shots in it. That went out the window. But in actual more gameplay, like in team-based gameplay, you're gonna want to pick whatever weapon you would normally use. I would not recommend changing your melee weapon based around, you know, this ability. Run the melee weapon you want to run for killing things, and just try and focus a bit more on heavy attacks when you can. Especially if it's like isolated one-on-one targets. I wouldn't focus on, I have to stay on heavy healing. Your 2 passives are kind of crappy, the headshot ones. So let's start, at level 10 you get the damage one, and at level 25 you get the healing one. The way it works is that headshots that you hit will mark the target. Follow-up shots from teammates, not you, will either deal 30% additional damage, or 30% of the damage that they deal will be restored to them as health. Now, the marked target health one is really good, because certain characters can deal insane amounts of range damage, hunters, and they can heal absurd amounts of health off of this. You can actually do more healing off of marked target healing with a hunter than you can off other characters. The problem with this, there's 2 main issues. One is that you yourself do not benefit off of this. You cannot shoot a target. Like, let's say you're running a double barrel or a boomstick. You can't hit the first one as a headshot to mark it, and then follow up with the second shot to get the bonuses. you don't benefit off of mark target healing or mark target damage. The other downside is the indicator on the screen is not very good. So the demon that you hit, their eyes will glow green. That's the indicator. It's not very good. So it's very hard unless you're on comm saying, hey, the possessed elite has been hit with a headshot. Go for the damage. Another thing I want to mention is that your mark will get removed if they get hit by a melee attack. To me, that kind of needs to go away. That's a very easy fix. You're ideally not going to be using these two abilities that often, although we are going to talk about a build for it. And the last thing to talk about before we actually get into the builds is your active ability is just fear mitigation. This is really good for just running through the woods and reducing fear on the fly. It makes you less reliant on fires and matchsticks. The fear reduction is not great, but it does let you go from full max fear to right below the threshold of possession. Now, a small buff that they could give to this is make it so that your fear levels cannot be increased for a short duration after activating it, like 5 seconds, or buff the range on it, because the range on it is relatively small. It's also a channel ability, which locks you into the animation. Alright, now, starting on the build. Every support has a core tree that they're going to build around at the start of the game. And each support is going to be building differently, depending on what character you're playing. However, this is what I recommend. So, obviously, you have your first point into Shemps Plus. Now, the supports, I'm going to explain some of the things around them a bit more. But the core thing you want to build around is you want to build to these two right here. That should be your priority. So your first point is obviously Shemps Plus. Your second point should be First Aid. Shemps Plus again. Deep Pockets. Deep Pockets. Shemps Plus. Shemps Plus. Packing Pop. Packing Pop. This is your core build right here. Now, this is going to cost a decent amount of points at the start. And you're not really going to be building towards your strength as Ashe. As support Ashe. This is the general support tree that every support needs to have, which I'll explain a little bit in detail. First up, we have Shemps Plus. You could also build, by the way, this way first, but to me, you want to get to this ability as quickly as possible. Shemps Plus makes it so that you heal 30% more health with every Shemps that you drink. This affects you, and this affects your teammates. Now remember that as a support, you share the benefits of your Shemps and your amulets with nearby teammates, 5-meter radius. This means that you actually heal your teammates for 30% more when you drink a Shemps. Now, a lot of times what I will do, I don't drop Shemps for my teammates. Even if I'm full health, I will consume the Shemps myself, especially if they're in combat. If I have two warriors that are ganging up on and beating on a boss, why am I going to drop them a Shemps? Yes, they can heal more if they drink it, and I'm full health, I don't need to, but I can keep them topped off and full while they are in combat. Some people say that this isn't really that great of an ability because, I mean, any healing is good healing. 30% more healing off of Shemps is really good because as a support player, you are going to have more Shemps. You are going to be using your Shemps to heal other players. You should try and build into this if you can. Next point is First Aid. Now you're going to have one mandatory point here no matter what. Whether or not you build into this is going to come up a little bit later on. This makes it so that whenever you revive a teammate from the bleed out stage, they will recover more health than normal. They recover 15% of their maximum health. Not 15% more health, 15% of their maximum health. This is good for guaranteeing that your teammates have more health. If you were to put the 3 points into this, they restore with a lot more health. This can be very beneficial in situations where a particular teammate is just constantly being focused by the demon player. You can revive them, and they will have more health to fight off the demon again. And it's also beneficial if you have it maxed out, because you can heal them once afterwards, and they'll be full health, especially with Shemps maxed out. Shemps Plus maxed out. The downside to First Aid, which is also the downside to Courage in Numbers, Brave Survivor, and Good Karma, is that as a support player, you are not going to be getting revives off that much because you're going to be focused. So next up is Deep Pockets Shemp Skull, and you want to max that as quickly as you can. This increases the maximum amount of Shemps that you can carry. So as a support, you can carry 1 Shemps at the start of a match, and it's 1 extra as well. So every other character carries 3, you carry 4. This automatically increases your item economy because that's 1 extra Shemps in play. Increasing the maximum amount of Shemps that you can carry takes you from 4 to 6. And if you're Cheryl, it's important because that'll take you up to 8 then. But we're not talking about Cheryl. This increases the amount of Shemps you can carry by an additional player. You have 15 now. This is an insane benefit to your team. More Shemps going around means more healing. The next one you want to build is Packing Pump. This means you start the match with an extra 2 Shemps. This means at the start of a match, you start with 3 Shemps. You have an entire player's worth of heals at your disposal. The reason why I say you have to build into this ability is you need to build into it so that you can... If you get bum rushed by the demon at the start, you can out-tank them. As long as you can get that heal off, you're golden. The only character that can really combat this is the Puppeteer, because Puppeteer basic units attack so quickly that they can kind of stun lock you out of doing anything. Especially if there's multiples around, because after a basic Puppeteer unit does its attack, it goes into a roar to buy you time to heal. If there's multiple units around, you're not getting that off. You're kind of dead there. Warlord would be the next fastest basic unit attacks. The possessed units, obviously, on a Necromancer are faster, but this essentially helps counter the early game rush that the Demon player likes to do with their basic units. Because of that, these 2 abilities are so critical to have as a support player. You need the extra carrying capacity, and you need the extra spawn capacity. This also just spawns extra Shemps into the game. This is the core tree, no matter what, every support's going to need to build into at the start. Now, there's 2 other abilities that you're going to want to build into as a support no matter what. First is Artful Dodger. You need to put your 2 points into Artful Dodger, reduce stamina cost by 20%. This will give you a 3rd dodge. You can now get 3 dodges. This is important for your survivability as well. The other survivability that you want to build around is Industrial Strength. I don't know if it's bugged, by the way, where you still want to leave it at 3, or if you want to put it at 4. But you want it at 4, this makes you a lot tankier. So you start with 1,000 health, this puts you at 1,250. This is good for all of the supports, particularly support Ash. You've got to build around this. Now, from this is your core support build that every support needs to run. This gives you total sustain and helps you buff your team. Your remaining 10 points are going to be based around what character you are playing. So, this is the first build that I'm explaining, is your core support build. The other 4 builds that we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about a damage build, well, 2 damage builds. We're going to talk about a revive build, and then we're going to talk about a general support build, and we are going to talk about a knockoff leader build. So the meme build is my knockoff leader build. This is an objective build that kind of negates needing to have a leader. So at this point, you'll have 1 point in the long life batteries. This is terrible. I would not run this. You just need the point to access the rest of your tree. You need 1 point to Fear No Evil. As support, you're not going to benefit from this. You don't want to put points into this. What you're looking to do is get Arcane Knowledge and Fast Forward. And then your remaining 2 points you can spend how you want here. I would personally put them in the Deep Pocket Amulets. You could also put them into Brave Survivor or Good Karma. What I would focus on, though, is Deep Pocket Amulets. This will bring you up to 6 amulets. 6 colas, 6 amulets. Bit of a meme build. Takes out the whole point of having a leader. At this point, you don't need a leader. So this increases the detection range on objective items. So you can find the map pieces very early on. If you have a farther range, it increases it from 25 meters to 37 meters. I forget if it's 37 or 38 if it rounds up or down. Not that big of a bonus range, but it's nice. The other reason here is fast forward. This will reduce the duration timer for the objective events, that's the pages and the dagger, by 10%. It's not a big bonus, but it can save you time, and that is very important in dagger and page fights. This build is slightly better on Pablo, in my opinion. This is the knockoff Pablo build. The downside to this build is that it doesn't really build around your strength as a support, and you're kind of not buffing your damage. Remember that all supports deal 20% less damage to both melee and range. So I don't necessarily recommend this, but it can be fun if you just want to not have to run a leader. The next build is kind of an item economy build. This is, I want to be the pack mule for the team. So for this build, you have your 1 point in long life batteries, your amulets. So that's 6. This is the main thing you're going to want to run anytime you have like 3 leftover points and you don't want to build around damage or reviving. By the way, just because the extra 2 amulets can be important, the downside is unless you're playing Pablo, you're going to be focusing more on Shemps than amulets. Very rarely do I find myself finding more amulets than Shemps to support, but if it happens, I'm like, okay, I'll just build around shields then. In this situation, you also want to work your way towards Deep Pockets matchsticks, so I put a point into Courage in Numbers, the 2 points into Deep Pockets matchsticks. Now you can carry 6 matchsticks. So, unless you're playing a Cheryl, you carry 6 of everything. 6 matchsticks, 6 amulets, 6 colas. This is a meme build, if you could not tell, because you don't really need, particularly on Ashe, you don't rely on matchsticks at all. If you're going to run that as well, I would run Speed of Light here. This is 35% reduction in the time it takes to light a fire. This is nice. It'll also leave you with 3 points left over. Personally, I would take those 3 points and throw them into Seeing Stars. Balance bar damage, better for combat. This is something I would build most of my supports into. Is it required? No. Do I recommend it? Yes. Kind of, again, meme. Situational. Alright, the next build is going to be based around your marked target damage, marked target healing. If you like guns, if you want to go for headshots. So you're going to build 1 point into Seeing Stars, which will get you access to Wig Splitter. Do not build Wig Splitter. Seems redundant. Put 1 point in, and go Tougher Than Hell. 1 point as well. And now you're going to build your hollow points. 3 points there. There could be an argument to be made for Stopping Power and the Last Word. I personally prefer this tree because balance bar damage with melee attacks is always good. You're going to be using melee more often than guns. Even on this build, you do not want to use guns unless you're Pablo until the demon finds you. Then safety's off. The core of this build is to get access to hollow points. That is 15% bonus damage. This offsets the penalty that you receive for... this offsets the penalty that you receive from just general being a support. You lose 20% to melee and range damage, so now you only are losing 5% range weapon damage. The reason why you're building towards this, it makes your general shots more efficient. The reason why you do not want to build into Wig Splitter is if you max out Wig Splitter here, you will do enough damage on a headshot to kill almost any unit, unless it is either a possessed unit, a boss unit, or certain elite units. If it is an elite Demielgos, no, you're not hitting that. If it's an elite skeleton, it's dead. Unless the demon player has actively built health. Excuse me. If it's an elite Henrietta, then that's going to depend on how much health she built into her. Since the balance update, I don't think you can one-shot it anymore, but I know you used to be able to. I ran this build once, and I was one-shotting pretty much anything that was not a Demi-Eldest. So, your remaining 4 points in this build, you can put a couple of different ways. If you want the amulets, you could do that. You have 1 point left over. I wouldn't run that. If you want general purpose healing, I would run 1 point into Brave Survivor and 2 points into First Aid, and at this point you could put the remaining point into either Good Karma or Courage in Numbers. I would personally put it into Good Karma. This gives you a bit more power around your reviving, but you're not really going to get that off as often. And if you want general combat, I would put the point into Devastating Force, which would then offset your melee damage as well. This makes you a total combat medic. I don't think you need both, though. I think you should focus on either one or the other. So that's if you want to build around that tree. The other thing I'm going to mention is this is the knockoff Cheryl build. If you want to build around revives. So you max out First Aid, you max out Good Karma, you max out Brave Survivor, you max out Courage in Numbers. You have 1 point left over. Not really a lot you can do with that 1 point. I would just throw it into Seeing Stars. Either that, or you could maybe put Courage in Numbers at 1 and put Seeing Stars at 3. That is what I'd recommend. So the core of this build is to be more of a total overall medic. You are going to be using first anytime a teammate goes down. This build is meant to revive them. You benefit, they benefit. So First Aid makes it so they get 35% of their max health. Like I said before, if you have Shemps plus max, 1 Shemps, full health. Anything that's not a warrior that's like max health, like if you have a max pink F warrior, max industrial strength warrior, you're probably not gonna get them to full health off of First Aid and 1 Shemps, but it's damn close enough. In addition to that, running Brave Survivor makes it so that their fear level will not increase for 10 or 15 seconds, depending on how many points you put in. This is good because when you revive a teammate from the bleed out state, their fear does not get reduced to 0 when they go to bleed out. It stays the same. So a lot of times what'll happen is you'll possess, the demon player will possess a hunter. The hunter goes down, whether to the possession ending, teammates damaging them, whatever. They will get revived, and it will immediately get possessed again because their fear is still relatively high, and down the rest of the team again. So this is good for preventing situations where you do not want the teammate that you are reviving who has good weapons getting up and killing everybody. Good Karma and Courage in Numbers are both to benefit you. Now, depending on your style of play, you may prefer one over the other. So Good Karma makes it so that you will recover a percentage of your health whenever you revive a teammate. 10% at tier 1, not really that great. 20% at tier 2 is a little bit better. Personally, I would prefer if this scaled a bit better. If it was maybe, say, 20% and 30% instead of 10 and 20. This is only really good if you're low health. Normally when you revive a teammate, like I said, you're gonna pop a Shemps right away. So it kinda negates that a little bit. But if you don't have a Shemps, if it's an endgame scenario and the demon's kinda just bouncing between downing people, this is helpful for keeping you and your teammates up. Courage in Numbers will reduce your fear whenever you reduce a teammate from the bleed out. This is very good at tier 3 because it cuts your fear in half. And this is based off of your total fear, by the way, not your current fear. So this cuts your fear by 50% of your maximum. So if you're not near your possession threshold, you basically remove all of your fear. This can be really good against certain killers. If you have a killer, though, that's not really possessing you or your teammates, it's not really that good. So, and like I said before, you're not going to get a lot of value out of these 4 abilities if you are being focused. And as always, to end it, I usually talk about the build that I am currently running. This is the build that I recommend, and this is based around alternative healing. I started playing this build, and I kind of fell in love with it. I played this build all throughout my level 24, so I'll remove the point from Industrial Strength, because I wasn't running that point because of the bug. Like I said, I don't know if that's been fixed. But, essentially, I have 1 point in Brave Survivor, just for the benefit on that. And then I built for melee damage. So I have Seeing Stars at 3, Weak Splitter 1, Tougher Than Hell 1, and Devastating Force at 4. This is 25% Boundless Bar. I get my finishers easier. This is 15% bonus melee damage, offset the melee damage of being a support. This is what I'm running. This is really good. This makes it so that there's essentially no penalty for melee weapons as a support. I'm still going to suffer the melee penalty for range. And you might say, well, you know, if you just remove the 2 points from Seeing Stars and the 1 point from Brave Survivor, you could offset that. Yeah, but I'm combat medic. I heal off of melee. I'm not using my guns as much, particularly for healing. And you might say that if I'm using my heavy attack often, then wouldn't I want to have less melee damage so that I could focus on healing more? No, I want to kill shit. Kill shit, it stops possessing my teammates. It stops attacking my teammates. There's no need to heal. This is the build that I'm running currently. This is the build that I highly recommend. But that's your general builds. When I get Cheryl and Pablo up, I will explain their builds a little bit more into detail. All of the supports are like hunters. They have a general purpose build that you're going to build around, and then at that point, you're going to diversify based off of your character. So, thank you for watching.